All right, listen up, nacho chips. Quiet down, crispy potatoes. This is the moment Velveeta's been preparing you for, and you're not about to crack under pressure. Today's the day to go all in on the drip. Velveeta's Heat and Eat Queso is the MVP of any game day spread, so stick by them, and you'll be golden. Now get out there and make delicious history. No tailgate party is complete without Velveeta.
Welcome to the Sportsman's Voice Roundup, your weekly look at conservation and sporting community news happening across the nation and on the Hill. Thanks for tuning in. This is the TSV Roundup.
Welcome in, ladies and gentlemen, to this week's edition of the Sportsman's Voice Roundup, your weekly look at conservation news from across the nation for the week of February 2nd. We made it. The 1,000 days of January has finally come to an end, and it was a long one. Spoiler alert. He saw his shadow, the little rodent that he is there, Punxsutawney Phil. And you folks, my next guest, know all about that in the last 2 weeks because you guys are digging out in the South. We did acknowledge the terrible ice storm last week, but the Atlantic coast, you guys got a significant amount of snow. So with that, we're going to welcome in Connor Barker here in a second to talk about Tennessee. Some Hunter Ed bills introduced there. Then we're going to go to Wyoming, Massachusetts, and we'll finish things off in the Great Plains states with some more good news. But let us get right to it. Connor, coming from the snowy whites of North Carolina. Connor, what's going on, man? He joins us via cell phone because the storm has just knocked all the infrastructure out, apparently.
Yeah, man. Thanks, Fred. Joined via cell phone. Our Wi-Fi got knocked down this morning, so hopefully that'll be back up sometime here in the next little bit. But yeah, a couple feet of snow down here, going on a couple feet of snow, so definitely different for Eastern North Carolina. But all's well and good, and things keep trudging right along in the CSF world, and state legislative sessions are still trudging along all across the South, including in Tennessee. And as you alluded to there, we worked diligently with our Sportsman's Caucus co-chairs down there. Specifically Senator Paul Rose and Representative Chris Todd as our primary sponsors for both of those bills. They're companion bills for our Hunter Education in Schools priority. You've heard about this on the podcast before. I think you heard about me talk about this nearly identical bill we had in Georgia last year. It just passed in Michigan at the end of 2025, similar bill. But anyway, the long and short of it, it's the same thing. It's a bill that will offer if enacted, would offer local school districts the opportunity to teach hunter safety education in grades 5 through 12 in the state of Tennessee. That would be a DNR or TWRA rather. The State Fish and Wildlife Agency would need to approve that. Very, very similar to what we saw in Georgia last year. So that's great. That bill has not been, as of when I last checked, had not been assigned to a committee yet. Maybe a couple weeks before that gets some sort of movement. But generally, if hopefully it goes the same path it did in Georgia, not super controversial or anything like that. But again, huge priority for CSF. It's something that we actually talked about at the NAS Summit this year, and both of our co-chairs that actually ended up introducing the bill on both sides of the chambers talked with me there at the NAS Summit, and that was something they were super interested in. So just a great example of how valuable that conference is for our partners in Tennessee and around the country, legislators as well. So. But yeah, we're super excited about it, Fred, and you'll see the TSV coming out this week, and then you'll see a ton more from us on that as it trudges right along. So,
Yeah, no doubt. I wonder, we heard a similar bill this session so far in New Hampshire. Some of the concerns on this from our particular committee was, language, the initial language of the bill sponsor, and he was coached by us in our Legislative Sportsman's Caucus after the meeting was kind of, I'm not going to say it was heavy-handed from my perspective, but for them and their, because it didn't even go to a normal sporting, fishing, game resources committee. It went to the education committee, which makes sense. So they're not used to seeing stuff like this in our world. So it felt heavy-handed to them when we provided our language, the language you're citing there in Tennessee. It's far more, we'll call it soft. This is more of a suggestion, an opportunity. It's not a shall. I'm wondering, do you know if any pushback was received, or is this like, yeah, Tennessee thinks this is a good idea? The language as it is very welcoming, and we think that this is something our what'd you say, 5 through 12 grades can utilize should they choose to. No, this isn't a mandate.
right. Yeah. And that was something we talked about with our co-chairs before, we were going through this process of getting this priority introduced is It's not a shall, it's may language, not shall language. So those schools do not have to do that. But that curriculum, if this is enacted, will be available for the next school year, which is great. And Tennessee is a pretty rural state overall, so it's really something that I suspect would probably be implemented in a lot of those school districts. Even in Nashville or some more urban areas, that would be great. But no. Long and short, no pushback that we've heard so far. We're working on. We'll do the same thing we did in Georgia. We'll work on getting all our partners across NGO partners and across all breadths of life through the conservation community involved in that, and just show that very broad range of support that we suspect to give or get from that rather. And then in Georgia, that bill received virtually no opposition throughout the whole process last year. And you'll see in this week's TSV that bill actually cleared the Senate late last week, and is going to the governor's desk in Georgia. So that's huge. That's very recent news. But again, 50 to nothing vote in a concurrence vote that took place last week. So I mean, it was nothing. But hopefully it's. I don't suspect any pushback. You never know. You know how this stuff goes. But as of right now, no, we're not hearing anything.
That's great news. Another thing you hear, and it really doesn't matter what state you're in or how friendly they may be to our our cause, our committee, our community rather, and our goals and what we're trying to do is the guns. The guns, initially people start freaking out like, "Oh, we can't have guns in the classroom." I think it's important to point out with this language, this program, is that the guns are not required to be in the schools. We
Right.
understand that. That's not something you got to do. That can be um, done off campus, probably by the volunteers that teach this stuff per the curriculum from the fishing game or the DNR there in Tennessee. People aren't getting their head wrapped around guns being in the classroom, ammunition in the classroom, things like that. It's very accommodating. What you presented, what you've done in Georgia, obviously is a testament to that and being able to implement some of these things. It's interesting enough conversation I had with a legislator up here is they get so hung up on the guns. I say, archery is a part of this too, right? And it's a growing sport. Kids love archery. And matter of fact, we have archery in the schools. So don't focus on so much on the guns. That portion, if it's part of the curriculum, can get done off campus. But archery is already part of your schools in some of them. So, there's a total connection right there, and their eyes open a little bit. So I think that's another important point. All right, final thoughts, Connor, and we'll let you go because your cell service is challenged right now.
Yeah. Yeah, I got it, man. But no, that's pretty much it for me. Just keep an eye on it as things get rolling there in Tennessee. Their session's starting to really get picking up, and yeah, just keep an eye on it, and hopefully we'll be able to report back on this in a few months with a couple bills that get across the finish line and get to Governor Lee's desk. So yeah, just stay tuned. Hopefully, good news to come.
Great stuff, and congratulations in Georgia. Well, a little early, but we'll wait till it's
Yeah.
official. Official. We'll hear from you when that
Oh
happens
yeah.
there with Governor Kemp hopefully signing that into law. Connor, thanks for your time. Good luck there digging out, and fairly well to you there in the snowy Mid Atlantic.
Yeah. Thanks, Fred.
All right, my thanks to Connor for his time and overcoming some of the technical challenges there, as well noted with that snowstorm. Yeah, good news out of Tennessee. Let us head west to Wyoming, where CSF will continue to champion the interests of sportsmen and women, where we are doing that with the Wyoming Legislative Sportsmen's Caucus and our in-state partners to ensure sportsmen and women are being represented in Wyoming. With that, we're talking about many bills, and where Wyoming State Legislature enters their shortened 2026 budget session, new bills are being filed every day. Um, these early bills can provide insight into the legislative focus for the coming season, and there are several bills relevant to sportsmen and women that are up on the docket. Some of those include transferable landowner tags, expanded authorizations for the use of tracking dogs on wounded game, and then the Wyoming Game and Fish Department tax restructuring. So, some important stuff there. You're going to want to check that reporting out from Nate Serlin out there in the Western states. Yeah, let's go up here where I'm at to the Northeast. Really awesome potential opportunities here in Massachusetts. This reporting will come coming to you from Christian Ragosta. Mass Wildlife's holding a handful of listening sessions across the entire state. They've already had a few. By the time this hits the airwaves, I think we're down to one more. And really, the big ticket items that are up for grabs here is Sunday hunting rollback, which for us obviously is paramount. Also, the ability for full inclusion of crossbows during the archery season. Those are really the two huge items that we have an opportunity to capitalize on. Coming off the heels of a very successful 2025 with neighbors to the south, immediate neighboring Connecticut, rolling back basically all Sunday hunting as it was specific to private land, and so much of that state is held in private land. And then Pennsylvania just knocking it out of the park finally um, with doing away and letting the PGC institute Sunday hunting was huge. So that in and of itself is a very positive step. As we have seen year in and year out, same bills always trying to chip away at it, but right now we're looking at just the full deal rolling back, and that would be huge for Massachusetts sportsmen and women that go out there in their pursuits. Huge for the the non-resident states that border Massachusetts as well. Maybe free up a little space. Not that we don't like those non-resident dollars in our states, but woods get a little crowded around the border. And then also importantly, from a biological and wildlife management standpoint, Massachusetts, especially southeastern Massachusetts, Cape and the islands, are inundated with white-tailed deer. So not only have we worried about the Lyme disease issue with ticks, the deer tick up here in the Northeast, but now alpha gall um, has found its way north, especially in southern New England. And I heard a very disturbing stat. I can't quote this direct stat to you. It's a couple hundred people um, on one of the islands, kids, all have alpha gall. So much so that there's such a high density of people with alpha gall that the local school had to readjust their their culinary offerings in the school for lunch, and I assume for any other snacks. They had to rid themselves of any meat products because of the levels of severity of the folks that have contracted alpha gall. Whether some people are going straight into anaphylactic shock, some people are getting hives or having some breathing problems. Either way, this is terrible. Opening up Sunday hunting, surely a great idea to start backing some of the populations off there, allowing for some more special hunts and just doubling the opportunity on the weekend for working families and kids that are just inundated with travel. I don't think there's any sports that truly stay in their own town anymore with their own rec departments, like most of us probably listening and me speaking on this show we're used to. We're here, there, and everywhere, and it just takes up so much time. But anyway, I digress. Sunday hunting rollback, really awesome opportunity there in Mass. So if you're listening in the Bay State, you still have a couple more opportunities to have your voice be heard and get those comments submitted to Mass Wildlife. All right, we're gonna wrap this show up in the Midwest. This coming from Jake Gould, where Great Plains region saw two CSF legislative priorities introduced last week in Kansas and in Iowa, respectively. The Kansas, the Kansas bill would ensure that the state's Fish and Wildlife Agency is reimbursed for the revenue that is lost from free and discounted licenses. And then in Iowa, the bill would encourage political participation by hunters and anglers through voter registration, which is that one's great and kind of gets lost in the sauce, if you will. We've covered the reimbursement thing, I feel like almost week in and week out. So I don't, that's a great thing that Kansas is doing. We want to see that move forward as it is a top 10 priority for CSF. But the voter registration at the purchase of a license is a very smart idea. As we saw in the 2024 election, the amount of sportsmen that were license holders that were not registered to vote was shocking. It was shocking. And then even more shocking was the amount of people that were registered to vote that didn't even show up. So, we want to encourage the sporting community of all flavors. If you're just angling, if you're just hunting, if you're living both lives, if you're trapping, we want people registered to vote And this is a great and easy way to do it. Other agencies in the states already do this. A lot of states do this at the DMV when you get your driver's license. There's other agencies that automatically do this. So why not, with your respective DNRs, fishing games, do the very same thing and make sure our community, at the very least, is registered, and then really encourage people to get to the ballot box in your respective Novembers when we have elections, and elections that truly influence policy on our sporting traditions and community. So, watching that one very closely, and we will definitely hear more from Iowa from Jake in the future. All right, that'll do it. That will put a wrap on this week's look at conservation news from across the nation. It is so busy, guys. I said last week and the week before, we're off and running. We truly are. It is lightning fast with the things that are moving and shaking right now. By the time you hear this, and I'll have an update for the next week, New Hampshire right to hunt and fish amendment, as this drops yesterday on February 3rd, its first committee hearing was held. So I will report on this the following week to give you an update on that. Mid-Atlantic is off and running everywhere. We got so many important bills being heard in the state houses. And as we always say, the stuff that happens on the Hill is important. It's the stuff that gets the lion's share of national news coverage and local news coverage, truly. The real work's being done in these state houses, right in your own backyard. So when we say you got to show up for these hearings, if you're able to comment, submit testimony as a citizen that cares about this stuff, you really need to do it. It's so important. And if you have an issue like right to hunt and fish, you have an opportunity there to amend your state constitution, or in Delaware's case, just the legislative body hearing from you, wanting to get this done because they don't have to go to the ballot. Take the day off from work, burn a sick day. This is so important. You hear so many times that, well, we're working class people. Why do they do this during working hours? Because government happens during working hours. And if it means that much to you, and it should, to have, specifically as we're talking right to hunt and fish, to have the right guaranteed to you in perpetuity, and not, and more importantly for our next generations, to make sure our kids and their kids have this, take the day off and sacrifice a day and during the rut, whenever you take time off to hunt or fish, like sacrifice one day, sacrifice half a day, make your voice heard, because if you can get it done, all the rest of the days will be yours in perpetuity. And anyway, make your voice heard. It matters. These numbers matter. These local state legislatures see those numbers and respond in kind. So we'll leave it there. That's the show this week. Thanks so much for tuning in. Feature podcast tomorrow. Make sure you're tuning in for more of the NASC sessions this Thursday. As always, CSF is your inside connection to outdoor legislation. We will see you tomorrow and next Wednesday for another Roundup. So long.
Thanks for joining us on this edition of the Sportsman's Voice podcast. Ladies and gentlemen, your support is crucial, and you can help us out right now by leaving a review, filling in those 5 stars where available, sharing this episode with friends and family, and engaging with us socially. CSF can be found on Facebook, Instagram, and X, formerly known as Twitter. Together, we can protect the outdoor sports we love and continue to keep you informed wherever you are. That's it for this week. Until next time, we'll see you later.